So if, let's say someone is primarily functioning or has been functioning from a state of negative emotions, fear, and that kind of thing, can simply practicing getting into a state of excitement more often move them toward creating the kind of life that they want? Or do they need to get to the core of what that fear is? Or will simply getting into the state of excitement eliminate the fear in the process of moving toward what a life that is more exciting?
It can help to start that way, to do the things that excite you, to follow your passion, because one of the tools that Bashar explains belongs in the toolkit of excitement is the reflective mirror. And what he means by that is when you're acting on your passion, one of the things your passion and excitement does is reveal to you any belief system within you that is actually out of alignment with that excitement by comparison. So part of your excitement is to find the things within you that are not part of your excitement. And by revealing that to yourself, by finding out what those definitions are and identifying them, they're easier to let go of. So it's kind of a combination of the two. You can start following your excitement to help you discover what those beliefs are, or you can start by discovering what those beliefs are to help you follow your excitement by letting them go. But it is of paramount importance to understand to some degree and in some way what those definitions are, because from Bashar's perspective, you can't change what you don't acknowledge exists. If you're unaware of what that belief is, you could start repeating the same behavior over and over again, no matter how much you want to follow your excitement, because the excitement's going to keep revealing it to you. But if you don't do anything to let it go, then it's just going to repeat itself. So the excitement has done its job by bringing it to your attention. Then you have to do your job by looking at what that belief is and understanding why you might still be holding on to it, and find a reason to not hold on to it anymore. Find out that it is really not your belief. You probably picked it up from your parents, your school, your friends, your society. It's not anything to do with you, and you have to see the nonsense in it and the illogic of it in order to drop it. And once you do drop it, then you expand your ability to experience more excitement. But as long as that belief system is there, as long as you're holding on to it for what you think is a good reason, because that also comes from a belief that you need to hold on to it, that's another belief you have to let go of, you start cleaning your attic out. And as you do that, you become more streamlined, you become more capable of absorbing higher frequency energies and so on and so forth. So following your excitement will help you discover the beliefs. Discovering the beliefs will help you follow your excitement. It's kind of a chicken and the egg thing. It works together in one system.
Let's take your chess analogy to my earlier example, something that more people could probably relate to. So essentially playing chess, and the chessboard, I'm assuming, would represent, let's say somebody came into life to experience poverty. And so could the chessboard be, or the game of chess, be that experience of poverty that is the hallway that they chose to walk down?
But yes, like I said, it could be.
Okay. And then, so possibly, even if they can't change the experience of experiencing poverty in that life, because that's something they needed to go through, what they can change through entering a state of excitement is the subtle nuances of how they go through that experience. Is that... Yes. Okay.
Yeah, because you have the ability to go through any experience in a positive or a negative way. And in some senses, then, by even saying that, they have to some degree changed the experience. Because if you go through something in a negative way with negative belief systems, that's one experience. If you go through what seem to be the same circumstances physically in a positive way, it's actually a very different experience. Many people can experience things that look identical to other people, but experience them with joy and all sorts of different kinds of emotions, as opposed to the way someone else might be experiencing what appears on the surface to be the same kind of an experience. But for those people, they're two different experiences, even if the circumstances look identical.
So maybe you can explain to me some of the mechanics of a real life situation. Let's say somebody is in a deep state of sadness or depression or fear about something that's happening in their life. let's use our earlier example of, let's suppose they're having financial problems and they're unable to find a way to shift out of that state of depression and fear into a state of excitement. Are there some mechanics you can share that they could practice that would help them to shift
Sure.
out of that state?
Sure. I mean, one of the main conversations Bashar often has with people on Earth has to do with things like, abundance and finance and so on and so forth, because we're so focused on the idea here that money is one of the strongest representations of abundance. And he's okay with that. That's fine. But he's saying it's not the only representation. We tend to over-focus on that one symbol of exchange, on that one symbol of support or wealth or abundance or whatever you want to label it as. He's saying if someone gives you something as a gift, that's another form of abundance. Synchronicity bringing you what you need is another form of abundance. So from his perspective, the first step, when you might be in an experience where you feel a lack of abundance or unsupported or whatever, and get depressed about that, is to understand that you may simply have too limited a definition of how you can be supported. You may actually be, with a limited definition, closing the doors through which other forms of support and abundance could be coming to you, but because of your, let's say, insistence that it has to look a certain way, that it has to come in a certain form, you're actually narrowing the channels through which other forms of abundance and support could come to you in your life that you may need in that form, more than you need in the form that you've been taught to think must show up in your life. So just by changing your definition of abundance to something more similar to what Bashar's definition is, could make all the difference in your experience. And his definition of abundance is very succinct. It is literally the ability to do what you need to do when you need to do it. Period. That's it. It's a very short, very simple definition. You just have to have the ability to do what you need to do, not what you want to do necessarily, what you need to do in life in order to be experiencing abundance. Because if you are able to do what is truly something you need in your life, and you're able to do it no matter how much money you have or little money you have or what have you, then you are functioning abundantly in life because you're able to do what you need to do to continue to grow, to continue to act on your excitement, to continue to be more of yourself. That is the definition of abundance. That's the definition of fulfillment in a life. It doesn't have to look like anybody else's life. You don't necessarily have to have as much money as someone else does, because obviously we know there are many people that have a lot of money that are also not happy in life. So that's not the factor. It's feeling fulfilled. It's having what you need to be yourself. It's having what you need to move through your life in a joyful way. That's what abundance is having the ability to do that. So changing that definition can make all the difference in that experience.
Now, when we're in a state of awareness of synchronicity, we are connected to a higher awareness to where we understand what we need and that we are receiving what we need.
Yes.
But for the most part, human beings don't exist in that state of awareness very often. So
Right.
we confuse what we want with what we need. So how is someone able to even apply the rules or the mechanics of creation if we're trying to constantly create what we think we need when in fact it's what we want that we don't need?
Well, I think the first thing is that, again, cleaning our attic of a lot of negative belief systems, we have been taught to think that we have to control everything, when in fact, we're already in control. Everything already works. And we have to kind of let go of the idea that we have to know everything. We really don't. We have to trust that our life unfolds in the way that it needs to. We have to start trusting the way in which it unfolds and allowing it to work for us rather than trying to make it work for us. The whole concept of surrendering is not giving up control. That is an erroneous definition. The concept of surrendering is allowing ourselves to surrender to the control we already automatically have. If we would just relax into the flow of the way our life unfolds, we would automatically see that it contains the synchronicity that brings us what we need. A lot of times what we want is the product of our negative ego, thinking that that's what it needs, because we've been taught to believe, well, if you don't have this, you're not successful. If you don't have this, you're a failure. So we're creating all these arbitrary and artificial measuring tools against which we always find ourselves coming up short. If we just simply know that we have what we need, if we allow it to come to us, then we will see that, we're always abundant. We never really lack anything. It's kind of, again, an oxymoron kind of way that we have chosen to believe things, is because people think, well, I just need to learn to trust, or I just need to learn to have confidence, or, I'm lacking abundance. And no, none of those things are true. It's actually the opposite. You can never actually not have trust. It's automatically built within us. You can never not have confidence. You can never not be abundant. It's just a question of, what are you trusting in? What are you confident about? What are you abundant in? So it's not that you lack trust, it's that you trust lack. It's not that you lack confidence, it's that you're confident about the fact that you lack. And it's not that you lack abundance, it's that you have an abundance of lack in your life, which is a particular experience. So if you don't prefer those, stop trusting in that, stop being confident about that, stop creating an abundance of something you don't prefer to experience. You always are abundant in something. You're always trusting something to be true, and you're always confident that certain things are true. So it's not about learning to do those things. We automatically do them. It's about learning to put your trust and confidence in what you prefer them to be in. It's about turning those definitions around and therefore having a different experience. And that's why it's so important, from Bashar's perspective, to really be clear about your definitions in life.
So to enter a state of more conscious awareness of synchronicity in our human experience, is it simply enough to try to enter this excited state as often as possible, or are there other practices such as meditation or anything else that would help us to do that?
There can be. Well, first of all, I would amend by saying we don't try to enter it. You either enter it or you don't. Trying is its own experience. And if you want to spend time trying to do something, then that's its own experience and that's fine. But trying to do something is not the doing of a thing. And it goes back also to the idea of wanting. What people don't understand, and what would allow them to probably stop wanting is its own state. It's its own experience. And if you want something, all you're doing is perpetuating a state of wanting. Wanting is not having. So I think when people wrap their minds around the fact that wanting this and wanting that is only going to keep them in a state of wanting this and wanting that, and not having this or having that, or experiencing this or experiencing that, they'll probably finally get the point and they'll stop wanting and start simply allowing themselves to attract what they really need, so they can actually have an experience instead of wanting to have experiences. But to go to your question, this is what Bashar calls permission slips. To him, any ritual, any tool, any technique, any object is a permission slip. And what he means by that is, our belief systems will attract themselves to whatever we believe will help us become more of who we are. And that's fine. So if we're attracted to meditation, the reason we're attracted to it is because our belief system says, this will work for me. This will allow me, in fact, to circumvent any beliefs I may have that are holding me back. So I will use this tool. I will use this permission slip to give myself permission to be more of who I am, because my belief says there's no other way I can do this. So the very fact that you're attracted to something like that is an indication that it will probably work for you for a certain amount of time, as a permission slip to allow you to circumvent your belief system that's holding you back and allow you to experience more of yourself. Now, as you change, you probably will need different permission slips. So it's okay to find yourself being attracted to something else as you use up the first permission slip. Some permission slips may last the entire lifetime. Some people may need to go from permission slip to permission slip. As long as you're attracted to it, that's usually an indication it will work for you, at least temporarily. But the ultimate point is to understand that you're the one giving yourself permission to change. So ultimately, you finally realize you're the ultimate permission slip. You don't necessarily ultimately need any tool, any technique, any particular object in order to make the changes that you prefer to make. You can just get to the point where you decide this is what you prefer and you change. And that's all there is to it. You become the ultimate permission slip. You become the ultimate meditation. You become the ultimate technique.
Now, some people go through their homes and they get rid of all their old things, or they minimize their lives to where they live with very few material possessions.
Mm-hmm.
And it often radically changes their lives in positive ways. Now, changes their health sometimes and brings in more abundance. Are material possessions in any way connected to our ability to create? Does the having of more possessions in some way limit or restrict our ability to create something else or the life we want?
Yeah, it can, it may not. I mean, again, it depends on the person, but this is exactly what I was saying about the definition of permission slips. Any ritual, any object, any tool, any technique is a permission slip. So getting rid of things in your house, collecting things in your house, both of them can be permission slips that work for people depending upon their belief systems. All I'm saying is, as long as it's not an addiction, an obsession, which is the negative side of that idea, as long as you are truly attracted to something, you're attracted to it for a reason, and probably that reason is it's a permission slip that will work for you as long as your focus and intention is to change for the better, is to improve yourself, is to grow and learn. So that is basically the bottom line to any of those kinds of physical activities, like cleaning your house out or collecting certain objects or what have you. But again, it's not about getting caught up in that action or getting caught up on those objects, getting caught up in that ritual. Ultimately, it's the understanding that the ritual is simply substituting temporarily for your ability to make a decision to be a different person. And all you have to really realize is it's just a decision. It's just a choice. And if your belief systems are all in alignment about that, then you won't necessarily need any other tool or permission slip to know that you can simply change by making a decision. And it's that simple.
Is there any sort of relationship between, so from what I'm understanding, you saying material things themselves have no real impact in and of themselves. It's just they often are a permission slip for us to believe one way or the other.
I mean, again, physical reality isn't real. Therefore, it's kind of like whatever we design them to be, whatever meaning we give them, is the effect we get out of them. They're fundamentally neutral, empty props. But we're designed to give life meaning. The experience itself has no meaning other than the meaning we give it. It's just like an empty vessel for us to fill. If we fill it with negative meaning, that's the effect we get. If we fill it with positive meaning, that's the effect we get. Because by itself, it doesn't have built-in meaning. We're the ones designed to give it meaning in order to get the reflective experience from it. So, really, the object itself has been imbued either by society collectively or by a person individually with meaning that we either agree with or disagree with. And therefore, we're either playing a consensus game and say, yes, most people will find that if you do this, you'll probably get a beneficial effect from it. And that may be true because the collective has said that that's true and you're buying into it. Or individual will say, well, you know, despite what the collective says, I prefer to believe that doing this or holding this crystal or taking this herb or doing whatever ritual I'm going to do is going to benefit me more than what the collective is saying. And if your belief system is truly in alignment with that, it will, because you believe it will. I mean, remember, this even goes back to what, you know, ancient scriptures are talking about. biblical scriptures are talking about, even master teachers and Buddha and Jesus and Krishna and whatever, we're really talking about the same thing from Bashar's perspective and my perspective, because very specifically, when, let's say, people say, oh, well, Jesus healed the sick. No, he did not. And he said he did not. He said, your faith has healed you. Your belief has healed you. He just had a talent for getting people to change their beliefs to the point where when he told them they would be well, they would believe him. And it was their belief that healed them. So he understood the mechanism. He understood that they had to imbue the meaning into what he was saying, that what he was saying couldn't do it on its own, that if they bought into it strongly enough, they would experience the effect they were looking for. And that's exactly what he was telling them.